What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Stank815, and I'm back with another video. Y'all new to this channel, man. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, share, comment, and get notified when I drop the video. Today is going to be a reaction video to Samuel L. Jackson, speaking about Bernie Mac, and speaking about Steve Harvey. I'm going to give my take and my view on when it comes to this comedy stuff. Bernie Mac is the truth. I always been a Bernie Mac fan. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I really never been a Steve Harvey fan. But I mess with Bernie Mac, and I mess with my boy Cat Williams, and I mess with Kevin Hart, but I mess with Cat Williams more. So, and I mess with Bernie Mac. You know, like, let's get into it and see what Samuel L. Jackson got to say about this. Y'all hit them comments and let me know what y'all got to say about this.
When I came to Chicago, when I was doing negotiator, Bernie took care of me. He took me out to play golf.
That was Samuel L. Jackson talking about Bernie Mac. But here's how he described meeting Steve.
Steve Harvey. I hear y'all take vacations together on the yacht or something.
Well, we get on the boat with Magic and Cookie. Steve and Harvey have their own boat.
Now, why would Jackson talk about Steve like that? Turns out there are rumors Steve tried to railroad his pal.
Bernie said in the GQ article that when he got Ocean's 11, Steve had reached out to the producers and said he thought he would be a better fit and tried to get the part, and blah, blah, blah. And that was some shit that, you just don't do.
Even more of their former pals confirmed that Steve was at odds with Mac.
I feel that the beef between Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey was because Steve Harvey was getting a lot of network love during the time, and Bernie Mac not so much.
Yeah, and then Bernie started to get it.
Evidently, they knew the whole story.
Bernie, felt like he didn't want to do it anymore. He was on his own path, and Steve. So, nothing like that ever happens or doesn't happen for a reason. So
Samuel L. Jackson and Steve Harvey are both some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry. And while that in most cases should imply that they're friends, coupled with the fact that they're both black, it appears to be the opposite in their case. Not only has Jackson almost never been in a situation with Harvey, it seems the actor has also made it clear in certain interviews that he's not Steve's biggest fan. To many people, this might seem like just some healthy competition between two of the most talented TV stars of our time, but it turns out it might be a lot deeper than that. For some part, it's because Jackson believes Harvey isn't exactly the best of entertainers, but the other part involves Jackson's old pal, who also happened to be Harvey's nemesis. This is a long, dark, and mostly uncharted road, so stay tuned to find out all about why the greats seem to be bumping horns.
So now I know the real Bernie Mac stories, and I know that the people that made money off Bernie Mac, they hated his guts.
Steve Harvey became a household name in the industry because of his comedy and his straight talk, both on his radio show and his daytime talk show. Not everyone seems to find him very charming, however. Without question, Steve Harvey is one in a short list of comedians who have managed to secure a spot as one of the greatest of his time. The primetime TV host is currently one of the most powerful voices in media, touting a career spanning nearly 30 years as a top stand-up comedian, actor, award-winning TV personality, and talk show host, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and humanitarian. But do you know who doesn't seem to believe Steve is actually any of these things? Our very own Samuel L. Jackson. Seeing as most black celebrities that are in the entertainment industry are usually inclined to have a relationship, as we've seen with Samuel Jackson and the late Bernie Mac, as well as Steve Harvey with Martin Lawrence, Harvey and Jackson seem to be an exception. Well, their relationship is more like one doesn't like the other, while the other is a little scared of the first. Seems as complicated as you'd expect it to get, but the details of their feud spread a lot wider than most people realize. For starters, it seems Jackson might not be totally convinced that Steve Harvey is who he paints himself to be to the world, both professionally and as a person in general. And while the Avengers actor seems to have made his disdain pretty conspicuous over the years, he took things to new heights recently after he talked about his experience meeting Harvey on his way to the ocean. A couple of years ago, pictures of Jackson with his wife, along with Harvey and his wife at a vacation spot, surfaced online, and because of the limited information people had about the pair at the time, everyone assumed that they had been friends. The headlines at the time even read, "Life on the Ocean Rave. Pals Steve Harvey, Samuel L. Jackson, and Magic Johnson enjoy July 4th on luxury yacht with their wives." Fast forward to some years later down the line, Jackson revealed that the details of their meeting were in fact not planned. The actor revealed that he and his wife were simply on their way to their choice of vacation of the year when they ran into Harvey and his wife. Looking at Jackson's expression as he spoke about it, it seems clear that the actor wanted the world to know that meeting Steve wasn't anything short of an accident. Now, this brings up the question of why Jackson may not be Steve's biggest fan. Turns out it has much to do with Bernie Mac, and you know who had a problem with Mac? Steve Harvey. You see, while the pair were in the same group, Harvey was hell-bent on kicking Bernie Mac out of his way. This is messed up on so many levels, mostly because they were only supposed to be a pair of professionals chasing joint success. But news that has hit the media about Harvey alleges that he only cared about himself from the beginning, and it all started years ago. If you were around in the early 2000s, you might remember the original Kings of Comedy show. But if you weren't, what you know about Steve Harvey's journey is probably only a part of the story. According to reports, Steve Harvey, along with 3 other comedians, became comedy legends in the 2000s. They went on a comedy tour called The Original Kings of Comedy. This show didn't just make a lot of money, it also played a big role in shaping modern comedy shows.
The most successful comedy tour ever at that point?
Yes, it was at that point.
Okay.
The other 3 comedians in the show were D.L. Hewley, Cedric the Entertainer, and Bernie Mac. They all had different styles, and they often talked about African American life in the United States and the differences between black and white people.
Steve was hot. We had the Steve Harvey show, so we had a national TV show. Bernie Mac was the it comedian at the time, and then DL was hot. He had a TV show.
At that time, Harvey was considered the smoothest performer, but also the most aggressive with the audience. He would make comments about people in the front row, like their hair, clothes, and future careers. On the other hand, Bernie Mac had a different approach. His style was the most intense, and some of his jokes went beyond comedy and touched on serious real-life issues. It appears that Steve Harvey might have felt envious of Bernie Mac's style, and this small issue turned into a long-lasting feud. At least that's what one of the band members seems to have just told the world, and now the internet is abuzz with the news. For a long time, there have been rumors that Steve Harvey and the late Bernie Mac had some disagreements during the original Kings of Comedy tour. Now, other members like Cedric the Entertainer are talking about these rumors. Cedric, who was part of the tour along with D.L. Hewley, Steve Harvey, and Bernie Mac, confirmed that the 2 comedians didn't always get along. He said, they were both strong personalities. They just had different viewpoints. But in the end, they managed to work through it. He shared this during an interview on Shannon Sharp's podcast club, Shay Shay. Cedric added that because of the feud, it had prevented them from doing another tour. I think, of course, that was, definitely a contributing circumstance, but I also think that it had a lot to do with the promoter on the thing because he got a bigger head than all of us. The dude that put us all together started to really think was about him, so it started to be that. So it was a lot of those kinds of elements. In 2003, Mac did an interview with GQ magazine where he said that Harvey was jealous of him and had tried to mess up his chances of getting certain movie roles. Steve later talked about what Mac said in a 2010 interview and shared that he felt hurt by Mac's words. But fans didn't believe Steve was telling the whole truth, and many of them didn't hide their feelings about it. One person wrote, "I never liked Steve Harvey. People always addressed how much of a raccoon he's always been, which is a fact, but he also had a superiority complex over other black comedians that he worked with, including Bernie and Cedric, too quiet as it's kept." Others took it upon themselves to expose Harvey, as was the case with this user who wrote, "When Bernie Mac was cast for the Ocean's 11 dynasty, Steve Harvey went to the director and producer to try and steal the role from him and even told them he would take less money. They said no and told Bernie. That's why Bernie never wanted to do another Kings of Comedy tour." Considering Jackson and Mac's background as best of friends, it's easy to see how this could have been grounds for his feud with Harvey. See, Mac and Jackson were more than just castmates. While they starred together in the movie Soul Men, most people aren't aware of just how close Samuel Jackson and Bernie Mac really were. In fact, his death before seeing the movie is something Jackson has spoken about repeatedly over the years. In the movie, Jackson and Mac play former bandmates who embark on a zany cross-country road trip to perform at the memorial concert for their deceased lead singer. Mac died of complications from pneumonia in August after production on the film ended. "It's even weirder that he never saw the movie," Jackson said. The Lakeview Terrace and Snakes on a Plane star called Mac a friend and said the Ocean's 11 co-stars would attend and perform comedy at Jackson's golf tournament in Bermuda. Outside of filming Soul Men, Jackson said he didn't get to spend much time with Mac, who starred in the Bernie Mac Show, the Fox comedy series that aired from 2001 to 2006. "We used to talk about blowing up and being famous and doing all this stuff and all of that," said Jackson. "Then when he got famous, he was here in LA, and I never saw him because he was too busy doing his TV show every day. I didn't go by and bother him, but I would run into him at functions, and we got to get together." The ending of Soul Men features a dedication to Mac and Isaac Hayes, two real soul men, and guess whose idea it was? Yup, it wasn't just Jackson that was personally saddened by the loss on the set. "I haven't quite processed that Bernie is gone," said Soul Men director Malcolm D. Lee. Understanding the basis of Jackson's relationship with Mac makes it easy to see how the actor may be at odds with Harvey over the details of their feud. However, the presenter did say he had a different explanation for what had happened between them. During the Conversations with Ed Gordon show, which premiered on Black Entertainment Television, Gordon interviewed Harvey and addressed the alleged feud between the two, with Harvey finally publicly addressing it from his standpoint. According to Harvey in the interview, the feud stemmed from the GQ interview with Mac, in which he suggests Harvey was not only envious of his success, but also tried to steal gigs from him. Harvey acknowledged his feelings about the GQ article and admitted his anger about it. "I was upset at first because it just wasn't true," said Harvey. "Me and Bernie had a lot of good times together, and then this article in GQ came out and put all this vicious stuff in there." Harvey also acknowledged that he spoke with Mac about the interview. B said he never said it. "I had to take him at his word for it." After Mac's passing, Harvey revealed that his widow, Rhonda McCullough, helped him get beyond the feud. "Rhonda, of all people, knows the truth. It was a cleansing moment for me because I was able to let go of a lot of stuff. No one knows what was actually behind the beef. However, Harvey's admission of having a cleansing moment might imply that something was there indeed. However, the comedian took things one step further in this step of cleansing. Some time ago, Steve Harvey used an episode of his daytime talk show to remember and celebrate the late comedian. During this tribute, Harvey, along with D.L. Hewley and Cedric the Entertainer, made an announcement. They revealed that November 14th had officially been declared Bernie Mac Day by the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. Bernie was a Chicagoan through and through, which is why the city of Chicago sent this over, Harvey said. "This is from the city of Chicago. It's actually a proclamation that says, in recognition of Bernie's remarkable life and legacy, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel has proclaimed today, November 14th, Bernie Mac Day in Chicago." As members of Mac's family burst into tears at the news, a clearly touched Harvey offered some advice on how to celebrate his friend's life. "I urge all Chicagoans to mark this occasion just as Bernie would have," Harvey continued, "with Thanksgiving for both our trials and triumphs, and finding the humor no matter what. It's Bernie McDay today." Mike Epps, who joined the tribute via satellite, also announced that Mac's Chicago alma mater would be renaming its auditorium in his honor. However, despite all the info that has come out from Steve Harvey about possibly regretting how he and Bernie ended things before the comic passed away, many fans don't believe him. These folks have been expressing their doubts on social media and criticizing the presenter. One of them wrote, "Yes, this is true, and I've been sour on Steve Harvey ever since. Bernie said this is the one thing that hurt him the most in the business. Out of all the things he'd been through in entertainment, Bernie said this was the worst." Another person added that Mac has always been better than Steve. They wrote, "Harvey was always the weak link, that's why he hated the Mac man. He had to practice for weak jokes when Bernie was a natural. He was the least funniest. It's easy to see how so many people could think so little of Steve, because the celebrity host's life has been repeatedly shrouded in controversy through the years. See, while Harvey became a household name due to his comedy and his straight talk, both on his radio show and his daytime talk show, not everyone seems to find him very charming. There are several aspects of the controversial host's life that could drive some to detest him. Only a while back, Harvey was publicly grilled after he seemingly threw fellow comedian Monique under the bus. Usually, when someone is invited as a guest on a show, they answer the questions. But Monique turned the tables on Steve Harvey during a recent episode of his show. While bringing her comedic charm to the show, the comedian also discussed some business dealings involving her and Steve Harvey. She wanted to show how she faced consequences for speaking the truth. But it wasn't just Steve Harvey she talked about on the show. She also mentioned a couple of other big names in the industry. Harvey countered that he thought she did herself a disservice with her call to arms over Netflix, noting that it came off as rich people problems. He also pointed out, if we're going to boycott, are we going to not get subscriptions, turn it off? Are we going to go down there and get signs? Monique faulted Harvey and other powerful African Americans for not being strong enough to go public and say, we can't throw our sister under the bus. Steve, on the other hand, told Monique it's not like that. According to the show host, continuing, he said, "You cannot sacrifice yourself. The best thing you can do for poor people is not be one of them." Looks like it's always been about the money for Steve Harvey. As it would appear, this was only one in a list of controversies that have come up about the actor. There is also the fact that Harvey might be a bit of a hypocrite for giving dating and relationship advice. The talk show host has been married 3 times, critics point out, which makes his romance advice sews in people's eyes. Accusations of unfaithfulness have followed Harvey through his marriages, even his 3rd one. Cheating on his wife wouldn't be a good look for a man who professes to be an expert on relationships if the allegations were true. There's also the fact that Harvey was sued by his 2nd ex-wife, Mary Harvey, though the suit was dismissed by a judge because it was filed in the wrong state. Still, with 2 acrimonious divorces under his belt, and with his 3rd marriage seemingly in turmoil after allegations that he'd stepped out, Steve Harvey's detractors say he's the last person they'd turn to for advice. There's also the matter of Harvey's talk show. Steve was canceled suddenly in 2020, which was a surprise not only to Harvey's audience, but it came as a surprise for Harvey himself. Harvey ripped the decision by NBC, explaining that he had read about the fact that his show was canceled before he'd been personally told the news. When sudden changes like this are made, rumors about why the change took place will inevitably begin to spread. It didn't help that Harvey had gone viral 2 years earlier in 2017 for sending out a memo asking staff to leave him alone while he was in his dressing room. This became proof that Harvey was difficult to work with, which might be why so many people readily believed Harvey was at fault for the cancellation. All of these details about the celebrity host draw a pattern in his behavior, which makes it easy to see how he might have been the problem in his feud with Bernie Mac, and subsequently why Jackson might have it out for him. However, seeing as the actor has not expressly spoken about his disdain for him, who knows, maybe he'll change his mind about him later in life. At least fans seem to hope so, as some seem to think the pair might have more in common than they thought, as was the case with this user who wrote, "Cedric the Entertainer and Steve Harvey are linked to new Samuel Jackson and Bernie Mac. We'll just have..."
I just want to give my opinion on this situation, y'all. Listen, I've never been a Steve Harvey fan. I never will be a Steve Harvey fan. To me, he phony. He tried to downplay black people to me. That's my opinion. Y'all get in the comment section and let me know what y'all think about this situation.